allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, gentlemen, this morning under public comments, we have a couple of folks that wants to address us. And I'll start, Ms. Linda Butler, you're here with us today, aren't you? Yes, ma'am, do you mind to come up to the microphone over here? Hopefully you're doing okay from your surgeries and such.
I got 2 broken ribs.
Oh my goodness.
I'm doing good.
Okay. I'll let you proceed if you want, and I'll introduce in case you or Mr. Grau or either one that's going to speak doesn't know. Starting this way, this is our County Attorney Sam Phillips, East District Magistrate Marty Chandler, West District Magistrate Nathaniel Downey, North District Magistrate Scott Poston, and South District Magistrate Myron Thurman.
Okay, I have some pictures here to show what I'm fixing to tell you. When Kentucky Downs built the last section on, I was in the hospital. When I got out, I made these pictures and I took them a copy and bagged them to put the ditch back in against the fence row where it wouldn't turn water on my house. Now, every floor in my house has holes in it. The heat unit, it took all of that stuff out from under my house. Water stayed under my house for weeks. And it looks like a river in my yard. I've been there 52 years. Never had this problem before. I know it's a low place, but we had the MC Groves put a ditch against the fence, and we put a ditch across the other side of our property to keep this, to put it in a ditch at the front of the property. And they just done as they please when they come in, and I begged them not to. I begged them after the fact, though.
Well, I spoke to Mr. Monday, our planning and zoning administrator, yesterday,
Yeah.
and he indicated that you had talked with him.
Yes, I did.
Because, I mean, I just want everyone to understand that when Kentucky Downs both originally built that facility and done the add-on, they had to have engineering work done to have the adequate water retention for their facility. So, I mean, I can't, obviously I can't say because I don't know, you know, but my assumption is according to the engineer work that they're kind of retaining the water runoff from their construction into their retention basin.
No. No. These pictures will show you that. There's 23 of them. They've got a copy. I took them a copy and showed them. But they didn't even contact me. They didn't even say nothing to me.
Are these pictures copies that you want to leave with us, or do you just want to pass them through and let us see them?
I'd like to keep them because I gave them the other copy.
Okay. You're welcome to pass them through and we can look at them. But and I guess my question is, I mean, what are your expectations, or what are you hoping that happens?
I want them to put the ditch back, and I want them to pay for my floors to be put back in because I live there alone.
And you've communicated that with the management at Kentucky
The
Downs?
foreman, it was over there. He's not there anymore.
You just talked with the foreman over the construction crew?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, I didn't fuss when they wanted to put the dueling grounds in. I didn't mind. But now I kind of...
Are these the same, because you've been in my office and shown me some pictures.
It's the same ones.
These are the same pictures? Okay,
Yes, sir.
so I've already seen those pictures.
is this water, Miss Butler, is it behind your house
It,
or towards the end of your house?
it's much worse since they paved close to my house, okay? They've got the land paved, and they've got lights, it's daylight there 24 hours a day. But the water comes off of their parking lot through the fence. I've even let the fence grow up where I thought it would keep, but it hasn't. And they didn't fill that ditch up until when they started construction on that new section.
So the drainage ditch in front of your house, is it okay? I mean, does
Oh,
water
yeah.
flow through there? Because that's
It's-
kind of where our obligation's at, is that ditching in front of your house, you know?
Yeah, and it's wide open. There's nothing holding it back. Now, the people across the street put pipe in and closed their ditches up, but the piping is broke, and now I get a little from that side too.
When
But
you say the people across the street from you closed their
ditches out.
tile up under their driveway?
Well, not only across their whole property. The length of their property has got pipe underneath, and they fill the ditch.
And Bobby, you've been out there and looked, haven't you? Your house is on the side of the road closer to Kentucky Downs, correct?
We're separated by a white fence.
But the back of your house
Is
is
the-
next to the Kentucky Downs property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No.
But you have been out there and looked at all the ditching on Groves, it's Groves Road, Groves Lane?
No, it's Groves Road.
Groves Road.
Lane is the next
If you
street
turn
over.
by Steve's Pawn Shop, is that the street you live
No,
on?
no. It's the one just as you pass Dueling Grounds. There's a white house that's there. You know where Dixie Discount used to be?
Yes, ma'am.
Turn
Okay.
where it used to be.
I'm
and
not,
it's a
I'm
dead
not,
end street.
I know where the buildings out on 31 are down through there, but I'm not familiar with where the exact roads are at down through there. So,
Well, there's only two roads on that side after you pass Dueling Grounds, and one of them's Groves Lane. It's the farthest south, and then the Groves Road.
Well,
Been down both of them.
as Magistrate Thurman indicated, which, he is the magistrate out in that district, you know, the county's obligation is to maintain the road and the right-of-way and the ditches in that right-of-way of that road. I mean, obviously, we can't come into your yard and do work in your backyard
Don't
or.
expect you to.
Right. So what we can do is just make sure, you know, I'm sure that our public works supervisor will be more than glad to look and make sure that everything on the roadside is like it needs to be. And the only other thing we can really do would be to like re-examine all of the engineer work with Kentucky Downs to see what they're doing to make sure that they are complying with the engineer work on their water retention and all of that.
That's all I asked of you,
Yeah.
is to keep them from turning any more on me.
You know, so, I mean, that's, Sam, I mean, here's our legal counsel. Am I speaking
I know
fairly
it.
correctly?
Yes, I am not unsympathetic to your cause. It's just, here's what you
can do and what you can't do for me.
And
I
so
know.
I think at that point, that's all there is we can do at this point is what the judge is talking about.
Well, when they closed it, I made an appointment with the judge to come in, but I was put in the hospital for 5 weeks.
Oh, gosh.
So I didn't get to do anything until recently.
Understood.
Okay.
and as far as the floors and stuff like that go, that would be a civil suit between you and
Kentucky
Kentucky Downs.
Well, see, I've got 2 broken ribs because of that. I fell through the floor.
Oh, gosh.
That's horrible. But that would be something that you would have to take up direct with.
Yeah.
With
I've got a
that
lawyer
business.
out of Nashville.
Good.
And that's what you should do, you know,
But I had to come before y'all, because he said, Benz, I had the appointment with you. I needed to keep the disappointment.
No,
Well,
that's,
Ms. Butler, first off, I hope your health does good, and I hope your ribs heal up well. I can assure you that Mr. Groves, our Public Works Supervisor, will take another look at Groves Road and just make sure that what we need ditching-wise on that road is adequate.
Especially if somebody stopped at.
Yeah. So we'll make sure, tell me your house number again so we can be absolutely.
144 Groves Road.
144.
It's the last thing, that's a dead-end street, it's the last thing on your right.
Okay, we'll make sure we're looking at the right
it's
property.
Groves Road as opposed to Groves Lane, there is a difference.
Right. So he will take a look at that and just double check and make sure that what we have ditch-wise is what it should be on the road. I will have, Planning and Zoning Administrator go back over all of the engineer design work, and we'll make sure that Kentucky Downs has done the work as they should have done, and which basically all we can do is go back through the inspection processes and make sure that all of the things in the inspection process have been checked as completed as designed. And
That's all I asked to.
I will assure you those two things will be done.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Butler, you have a good day.
Thank you.
Greg Brower, how are you doing today, sir? Getting ready to go to work? You ain't bringing stuff to throw at us, are you?
No, this has been thrown at me.
It's been thrown at you.
Yeah, we have a slight problem out on Boat Ramp Road.
Okay,
I don't know the gentleman's name. The sheriff might know him. But the house number is 130,
130 Boat Ramp Road?
Boat Ramp Road.
That's your house number?
No,
or
my house number is 232.
You're 232.
This house is where the boat ramp is. You go straight up that road right there. But we've been having an ongoing problem with this young gentleman quite a bit. We've called 911 3 times. I know there's no noise ordinance in Simpson County, but this young gentleman will shoot a high-powered rifle, especially on Saturday and Sunday evening, not in the day, but in the evening. And it usually starts around 8 o'clock at night. And his field is flat, and on Boat Ramp Road, there's a spot on his property between my house and Flowers' house is about 48 feet wide, and there's a slight incline, and he will stand there and shoot this gun in that direction towards our neighbors on the far end. Easter Sunday, we was having an Easter egg hunt at our house, and our neighbors behind us was having an Easter egg hunt. And this young gentleman was at Flowers' house shooting this high-powered gun towards a rusted trash can, and it was flying back towards their property. The other incident we have, which is this nice little stuff here, he makes a bomb. And is it titanium? Ketanite. And he shoots this stuff off between 8 o'clock and midnight. It sounds like dynamite.
Yeah.
This was found on my property. And I have an area between my property and his property. There's a fence line, and I mow that. And how I found it, I was mowing and ran into this. And he will shoot this stuff off, and he'll have a light on his head, and he'll start walking the fence line looking for this stuff. Last week, or week before last, he started, and I asked him what he was trying to prove. And we have called the sheriff several times, and he tells him, I'm shooting this stuff on my property. Well, it's fine for you to shoot a gun, but not at dark. The first time he told the deputy that he was hunting rabbits because they was getting in his garden. This was at 10:30 in the evening. Rabbits are out of season. At that time of the day, a rabbit's usually in its hole. Then he shoots this stuff off. The week that we called 911 again, he was shooting it again. They came out, they talked to him, they told us that there's nothing they can do because there's no noise ordinance. I understand that we really don't need that in Simpson County because we have farmers with their grain bins. We have people that are coon hunting. We have people with coon dogs. That's different. That's totally different from what this is. The next thing I know, at 10:30 at night, this gentleman's knocking on my door. And I approached the door, and I asked him, what do you want? He wanted to know what I was doing. How come I called the sheriff on him 2 times? By then, I had found this stuff. And I don't know if you know my land and my property, but I have a greenhouse, and there's an REA, there's a Warren County power line going there, and that's probably about 1,000 feet from my back door. This stuff was found by that pole. I told him that we would like to have some quiet evening with my wife and I, and that this is unnecessary for him to shoot this stuff. He told me, he said, well, I have this recorded. I said, well, you can record all you want to, because I'm calling 911 again. I went in and called 911. The first deputy came out. He asked me what was going on. The second deputy came out was the deputy there that was there the first time. He was over on 100 giving a citation. He heard 3 of these go off before any police officer came there. They went over, they said, okay, now we have a reason to go on his property. They went over there and they told him not to trespass on our property again. And the gentleman said, I'm done for the night. 12:30 that night, there was one that went off that was so loud and so powerful, our house shook. Flowers will not say anything against him because they're friends of him, but all the rest of the neighbors are hearing this. And I brought this up so you could all see it. On this one especially, you can see a hole right here. He shoots this off with a 22. A 22 will go a mile straight if it's not hit with anything. If it's hit with anything, it can ricochet and go a completely different direction. This is the second one. I hit him with the lawnmower how I found him. And this is part of the other one. You can smell this stuff, and you can smell it in. You can't smell gunpowder, but you can smell it in this. This stuff is powerful. A lot of people use it to get rid of tree stumps. I've been to Mr. Phillips. We've had a conversation with him, and he said he's going to get hold of Scott Crabtree and see what type of an ordinance they have. But this has got to stop. Somebody's going to get hurt.
Well, Greg, before we go on, I would like to hear any input that the attorney may have about your conversation, or if there's anything that the sheriff can add to it before we proceed. I mean,
Well, if basically, Mr. Grauer's correct. He did come to my office and we discussed this in some length. And I basically agreed, I think, with the sheriff's deputies. I don't really see any overt violations of the criminal statutes. I mean, I guess you could stretch 1 or 2 of them, but I would not want to prosecute them because it was just, I don't think I would not be comfortable doing it. And so I said the only thing possibly we could do is conceivably a noise ordinance. I also told him the problems inherent with enacting a noise ordinance in the county as opposed to one in the city. The city has different issues, different priorities, things of that nature, which is all. There are some rules and laws and ordinances that are great for both city and the county, and there are others that lend themselves more appropriate for one governmental body than the other. And I said I would talk to you, which I think I did call you after our meeting, about the fact that the noise ordinance issue would probably come on for discussion this meeting. And also I did tell Mr. Grauer, if I couldn't do anything on my own initiative on ordinances, I would have to be directed to by this body. I said, if that's the case in my first, I oftentimes contact Mr. Crabtree because, particularly since the city does a lot of these things already, he has something I could use as a template. But that's why I mentioned possibly talking to Mr. Crabtree, but obviously I would not do that. And I told Mr. Grauer that there may or may not be any desire on this body to so instruct me, because I told him, I said, the problem you got out in the county as opposed to the corporate city limits is that there are loud noises that are legitimately, that you're going to have. I mentioned the grain bins, drying their grain or their corn. Also mentioned other, loud equipment and such. And they've been there. That's lawful, legitimate business, and that's just part of it. But that said, as I've mentioned to you all repeatedly, with the county being more urbanized, particularly in certain areas, they run into the same problems that they would inside the city limits. And so that's kind of the gist of our conversation, is that I don't really see, I would, if I were in his position, I'd be hopping up and down as well. But I don't think there's any criminal statutes as it stands now that are being violated.
And I don't disagree with anything you've said, Sam, and I can't, obviously I'm not even going to try to speak on behalf of these gentlemen. They're all capable of speaking themselves. I'm not initially inclined to want to just jump and issue some type of noise ordinance outside the city limits. And because the good thing is, if there is a good lining to this, for every irresponsible gun owner, or in the situation that they're doing this at midnight or whatever, thankfully there's 1,000 more that are responsible and do the right thing. They just enjoy, getting out, either hunting or target practicing or whatever. I would hate to see that we limit that and a lot of other activity that happens outside the city limits. So I don't know about that, but I guess I am concerned about
Explosions?
I'm concerned about, and I'll be honest with you, I've shot tannerite. I've shot up to 3 pounds of it before, and it makes a heck of an explosion.
Sounds like dynamite.
Yeah, but when I've done it, it's been in a big wide open field with no other houses around, and it's been in the middle of the day when normal people are target practicing or shooting or whatever. I guess my concern is I'm not inclined to want to go with any type of noise ordinance, but my concern is that we do have someone, if they are, and I say if they are because, I'm not disputing your word, but I don't have all the facts from all parties involved. But if they're shooting this tannerite at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, midnight, and they're hurling projectiles like this onto other people's property, what do we do, or should there be some way to address that? And when I say should there be some way to address that, I'm asking legal counsel and the sheriff. I don't know what we do.
On this one, Mason, you can see where it shot with a 22. That's
Which one? I'm amazed that a 22 ignited it, because typically people shoot that tannerite with a higher powered rifle than a 22.
Yeah.
My main question is, I know you said there's nothing illegal about them shooting out there, but if they're blowing stuff on another property, isn't that something illegal there? Isn't that
That's my question.
I don't know.
The sheriff's coming to address us. We finally pulled him out of his chair. Right.
Everybody would like to have good neighbors. Sometimes you get bad neighbors, and it causes a lot of trouble for the people that live in that area. But what you have is somebody that wants to go shoot their gun in the middle of the night, and it bothers the neighbors. It's completely legal in the county, if you're out of the city limits, to shoot your gun. There's no time frame on when people can shoot guns, so he can go out there and shoot. Secondly, you can look at wanting endangerment charges when you're endangering other people. I had a neighbor who had a hole in his barn where somebody let a round go, and that happens every now and then. The area the guy's doing it, from what the the deputies have seen is a safe area. He's not shooting towards his house. He does own quite a bit of land back there. He's just choosing that that's where he's doing it at. The item that he's shooting does sound like dynamite. You can agree or disagree with it, but it's presently legal. There's nothing that says it's illegal to shoot it and let something blow up. I would tell you guys that probably some of the complaints you're getting on the rock quarry aren't actually the rock quarry, it's this stuff going off. Because honestly, if you don't know this guy's over there shooting and you hear an explosion and it's kind of in the same area, because when you get to the back of the end of the boat ramp road, you're right there at the rock quarry. So you're hearing explosions coming from over. I don't know, I'm just saying, when you hear something that sounds like dynamite, I'm like everybody else, you'll be on Facebook, and you'll say, I heard a big explosion over there, and then everybody will go, well, it must be the rock quarry, but they're only supposed to do it at a certain time. I'm saying some of that noise could be from him shooting this stuff. The item he has, as he described in his own, when he was speaking with y'all, guy had a light on looking down the fence road, picked stuff up. It's not showing he had any intention for anything to go over on his property, and he was trying to pick it up and clean up after himself. His area of the property where that came over is a good distance from the house. So again, it's not a wanton endangerment. It was I shot something and some of it went over there and I did try to pick it up. He's been warned. The one thing that we could do that was requested that the deputies did was issue a no trespassing to this subject. If you don't know, I'm not automatically trespassing just because I come up to your house. I have to know I'm not supposed to be there. So what we do in Simpson County through the county attorney, often we will have an official representative, such as a sheriff's deputy, come to you and say, hey, he said don't be on his property. You've been told, we're official. There's no doubt if we go to court that we know you've been told not to be on that property.
So that's correct. Them and the police, I tell them to have law enforcement, and that way law enforcement then calls dispatch, and there's a written record, someone's been actively notified, and they can't come to court and say, well, golly, gee whiz, I didn't know I'd been trespassed. That's why for that.
But the biggest place in an investigation you can find for somebody to be at fault is where they are recklessly shooting their weapon in the direction of your house and has endangered some lives at that house. We're not seeing that in this situation.
I was going to say, so we're pretty clear and pretty sure that the direction in which this gentleman's firing these firearms is not in the direction of anyone's house or barn or buildings of any type.
Correct. If you put into perspective, you're shooting the firearm like you're supposed to be.
Right.
I mean, every situation's different. If the guy walks out and just starts shooting up in the air and stuff, that's a complete different situation than having a target, as he described, on an uphill slope. And I suspect that's why they're going to the particular area, is there's an uphill slope that would catch your round. So,
because I'm sure nearly all of us in this room recall, and I don't know exactly the time frame on it, but there was a gentleman out in the Rapids Road area that was actually struck in the leg by a bullet that had traveled nearly a mile.
yes.
The folks were just firing a gun up in the air or whatever.
The bullet hole that was in my neighbor's, and that's not far from my house, probably traveled a mile.
Yeah.
And it was from some kids that were shooting, and they had no idea that that bullet would go there. And they had a clean black stop, but they were sitting high, our property sits low, and, I mean, there's no way we can stop that danger. We can look at things, but sometimes you never even know where a bullet goes, so it's up in there. There has been, we do not see anything in this situation that would warrant a wanton endangerment charge. It's not illegal to shoot the gun. It's not illegal to shoot what he's shooting. And that's why he's here. We've had this discussion. And I agree with him. I said, I'd be very frustrated.
Yeah, Greg, I sympathize with your problem, and I would not be happy if I had a neighbor firing guns at midnight. But I guess at this point what I'll do is I'll ask the magistrates if they have any direct questions for you, or kind of what their perception, where they think we are on whether we should try to implement any type of ordinance of that nature.
Well, as the sheriff was saying, he's got flat property, and there's two other houses that are behind his property, and he owns approximately 10 acres in there. And where he's doing the majority of the shooting is between our house and Flowers, and there's about a 48-foot swath through there. And whenever he shoots his stuff off, it's in that area. It's not way in the back. And the time frame is the biggest thing. The wife is even afraid to go out and sit on the porch in the evening. And she says, now this is the type of a guy that can come home. And usually he drinks quite a bit. He'll drink anywhere from 2 to 3 beers whenever he gets home, because he's come over to our house before on his gator, and he'd have a 6-pack with him, and he would drink 3 or 4 of them beers talking to me. And our one neighbor said that they called one night, and he was out in the back wrestling with a bunch of kids. He was drinking, and he shot a gun, was shooting a gun, and they picked him up for discharging a firearm while being intoxicated. And the wife feels that this is the kind of a guy that's going to turn around and get a gun and walk down to Walmart and shoot a bunch of people. If he does this haphazardly like he does at the time of the day, you know, I have no problem with somebody shooting a gun, but not at dark.
Yeah.
We have a huge dirt pile, and the grandson will shoot into the dirt pile. You know, we've got a place for him to shoot the gun.
Gentlemen, do any of y'all have a question for Mr. Grauer?
But how long have this been going on? Is he like a new neighbor, or he been there for years and he just started this, or what?
How long has he been there, Sheriff? About 5 years, 6 years? Something like that. It just seems like it's escalated quite a bit within the last couple of years. And he started shooting this stuff off this year. And it sounds like, first time I heard it, I thought, shoot, they're out there shooting at Rockberry. But then that's whenever we found out he was shooting this, because that's what it sounds like. It sounds like dynamite. And he usually does it on the weekends. And this weekend he didn't do it because I think he ran out of stuff, to be honest with you.
The Tannerite's not cheap.
The son on Easter was...
I wouldn't want that either, but I don't know what we could.
Here's what I think has happened. The guy who shot this Tannerite,
Sorry.
you had complained to him, a couple of people complained to him. He sounds to me like the type of person that said, I'll show you, I'll do what I want to on my property. That's what it sounds like.
That's exactly right, because the sheriff has come out and he said, this is my property and I can do whatever I want to do on it.
Yes, and most of the time, somebody who thinks it's bothering somebody else, and they know they're not going to get in trouble for it, will just do it worse.
That's a possibility.
That's very true.
So, you know, I'm not in favor of enacting a noise ordinance, because I've had people call the law on me before when driving a tractor out in the field late at night having to get work done. And I know I had a neighbor that a guy was going and cutting his grain bins off at night because he didn't like the noise that was coming in. And, you know, that's just for a certain time of year, but those two people were into it for a little while. But I don't know. I would hope that maybe the less attention you could draw to it might help with the problem. And I understand. I sympathize with you, because I wouldn't want it happening beside my house. But it almost makes, from what I'm hearing, it makes me think that this is a neighbor who, if you try to tell him he can't do something on his property, he's going to go above and beyond to make it even worse.
It's kind of like growing up with brothers. When you're doing something to one of them and you know it's annoying them and they complain about it, they just keep on.
We understand that, and we understand, Marty, that you move out in the country, you're going to hear the grain dryers, you're going to hear the
But you shouldn't have to
you're going to hear the people mowing, working late at that's acceptable.
But he shouldn't be subject to what you're being
This
subject to,
is
but,
totally out of proportion.
but we can't pass an ordinance that says this guy can't shoot tannerite at midnight. You know, if we have passed an ordinance, it has to be broad, and then it encompasses things that we don't want it to encompass. So when you have to do a noise ordinance.
The only thing I was gonna say is, and I mentioned this to him, it's some, you know, the various issues, and I'm not really thrilled with the prospect of, but I mean, there's certainly a possibility you could enact something that might, you know, restrict the hours, on, you know, noise ordinance for certain hours. I mean, I hear you, but I mean, as a rule, I mean,
Because what you get into there, Counselor, is you could, but are you just going to limit the noise ordinance on one specific activity?
I mean,
Then what do you do, as Marty described, if you've had an unusually wet fall, it's harvest time, you get a dry time, and you're running a combine at midnight. I mean, because it's been so wet you couldn't get in the field.
I hear all that, and I'm saying, it's not a good answer, but I'm saying there are other things besides no noise ordinance and a noise ordinance. You can also restrict it to times, but that would be, I'm not in favor of a noise ordinance, a blanket noise ordinance like the city has. What I am saying is, you don't have to limit yourself to all or nothing.
Well,
that is what I'm trying to say.
Well, Mr. Brown, what we may do with what the counselor's saying, if he has something that he would like to put together to present to us, we'll be glad to take a look at what the attorney would want to show us.
But I mean, that's,
Making no promises that we're going to issue any type of noise ordinance.
Well, the deputy told us Saturday night that there had been 3 other phone calls done on that particular thing. And, this is scary. And whenever he shot that last one off at midnight, the whole house shook. I mean, it shook, literally shook.
You know, what really concerns me, I mean, I'm gonna agree with Marty. I mean, if far as the noise ordinance, we could write it up as gunfire, whatever, but then what's tomorrow? You know, loud cars, loud trucks, there's never end. But what concerns me more, Greg, is that this gentleman come on your property, and that concerns me. Now, I don't have any legal advice to give you. I have a neighbor that likes to target practice. I get a little apprehensive because I don't know. I mean, I know what he's shooting into, but bullets can ricochet. I agree with you on this. But this guy may be wanting some attention, but now as far as the legal parts of it, you and your neighbors may have to.
But does he do it at 8, 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night?
That would concern me. I think he was asking, does your neighbor target shoot at 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night?
No, he doesn't do it at nighttime. He's during the daytime hours.
Right, I mean, daytime, we accept
But
that.
This gentleman lives at 130 Boat Ramp Road?
Yes.
Okay.
there's just certain things in the county, and Greg, I didn't know whether you actually, I'm not sure what the city limits are. I didn't know whether you was in the city or
No, the lake is in the city, and
Okay. But
dam is in the city.
I got a call yesterday. Actually, I went by this gentleman's house, and it wasn't gunfire, but he doesn't like these trucks passing by his house. I don't know if he's gonna come to fiscal court. He's wanting a noise ordinance concerning truck traffic. Well,
A person's gotta be in the right frame of mind to accept a truck going down, that's life, that's business. The grain business, that's business.
Unless the attorney or the sheriff advises against this, I may just go visit this guy and just ask him, hey, could you kind of chill out at nighttime? I don't mind to talk to him.
You know what he'll tell you?
No?
He'll tell you, it's my property and I can do what the heck I want to on it.
And I'm gonna say I agree with you.
And we do too, you know, but this is going way too far. Way, way too far. And whenever he shot on Easter Sunday at Flowers' house, I don't know the gentleman that lives behind us. He says he knows you, but I mean, he was shooting directly towards his house. You know, and, yes, he's got a lot of space out there, but still yet, it's less than a mile from his house to the other two neighbors' house. And then he shoots.
Let us try to handle this with some diplomacy, because I don't think there's any feeling from the fiscal court, if I'm hearing right. We're not really inclined to want to do a noise ordinance outside the city
Well,
limits.
we understand that, but we thought that there's surely something that could be done to prevent this from taking place further.
We'll try to have some conversation and see if the conversation will lead to something better.
Okay. But the wife, we're just afraid that,
I understand.
you know, the grandkids are out there playing hide and seek at night, and this stuff goes off.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
Anybody want to?
Paperweight?
we'd appreciate that you just take those home with you.
You can smell the stuff in it. And
Yeah.
whenever the lawnmower went over it, I went, crap! But this is an area that we go all the time, and it's
And-
disturbing.
All right, we'll see what we can resolve with all this.
I'd like to hear what the response would be later on, if I could, please.
Okay.
Marty, I tried to get hold of you, but I told Sam, he's out in the field, he won't be able to get hold of
Well, you got my cell phone, you call me anytime.
No, but I mean, I just thought, you know, he's
Right.
out doing his crop work and stuff like that.
Right.
You move out in the county, you expect this kind of stuff. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, Greg, have a good day. All right, gentlemen, moving on, if you had an opportunity to review the minutes of our April 6th regular court meeting, we need a motion and a second to approve those minutes.
Motion move.
Motion by Nate,
Second.
second by Marty. Any question or discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, gentlemen, this is just acknowledging receipt of the fiscal year 21-22 Simpson County Extension District Board budget. We're not approving their budget. Obviously, you're all aware they're a taxing district. They have their funds coming in, but we do have to make a motion in a second just to acknowledge that we have received their budget.
So moved.
Motion by Marty. Second. Second by Scott. Any question or discussion about that? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next, gentlemen, is to review and approve the second reading and passage of fiscal year 2021 budget amendment number 9, ordinance number 220.227. And if y'all recall, this was to get money situated to go ahead and get the PO and place the order for the sheriff's vehicles for the upcoming fiscal year. Most likely the vehicles won't be here till after the new fiscal year, but because of accounting practices and audits and so on and so forth, if that money's not situated correctly, we can't issue the PO. So I just need a motion and a second.
Second.
Motion by Marty, second by Nate. Any other question or discussion? Hearing none, Pam will do a roll call.
Marty Chandler,
Yes.
Nathaniel Downey,
Yes.
Scott Poston,
Yes.
Myron Thurman,
Yes.
Mason Barnes.
Yes. Next, gentlemen, I'll be disappointed if we're not all in favor of this next one. This is to review and approve the fiscal year 21-22 cooperative program resolution and agreement, which deals with county road aid, which puts just over $800,000 into the road department budget. But we have to have a motion and a second to approve both the agreement and the resolution and authorize the judge to sign both.
Motion made.
Got a motion by Scott, second by Nate. Any other question or discussion? Oh, I done said that, didn't I? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? I figured everybody'd be in favor of participating to get that road money. All right, next, gentlemen, if you've had an opportunity to look at on the portal a section of the industrial park, the industrial authority has made a request to get the help from our public works to do a little grading work and prep work to extend approximately 300 feet of Page Drive out to Sisk Road. Evidently, the other end of Page Drive is prone to some flooding, and you see the amount of note there. They want a gate at the end of this, and this would be for emergency exit or access only. So the industrial authority is covering the cost. It's just you've got 300 feet approximately that would need grade work and prep work to be able to do the paving.
My only concern is when I was on planning and zoning many moons ago, I actually made the motion for this industrial park. And they were told then this road would never come out the back under any circumstance. Because that was one of the concerns of the neighbors. They didn't want traffic to come out of here on the Rapids Road. And the community was told out there then that road would never come out on that road.
What is the reasons, Mason? I mean, I'm concerned about the traffic.
The flooding.
Yeah, evidently, when there's heavy rains, there's that one section of Page Drive that is underwater. That was what I was told. Now, I've not been out there personally and seen it underwater.
That road gonna handle, there's several cars that could come.
Exactly.
And suppose, and
That was their
that's
concern.
right, and as I was, like you see on the little map drawing there, I was told there would be a gate, I'm assuming a gate similar to like what we use to pull across the road to close off the low water crossings that would remain shut unless the road was impassable the other direction. I'm just bringing the information
I
up.
understand. But, you know, you look at if something happens up there and they said, you know, they have a wreck on that road. And then they said, well, we can just put the trucks out on the Rapids Road because that's a state road. Well, they got to come on that Sisk Road to get onto it. You know, and I know that wouldn't happen often, but there's going to be people that find out they can go out that road back there somehow or another. They can drive around the gate.
Marty, was what you're talking about, was that part of the record of the planning and zoning meeting?
When we were at that planning and zoning meeting, I remember they said, you know, that was the complaint. They said, no, there wouldn't be traffic out onto that road.
Because what I may need to do is pull the minutes, try to go back and pull the minutes to that meeting.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah. The fire chief's got his hand up. Yeah, come on to the microphone. Yeah. Yeah, when we're doing, things of this nature, we're glad to hear from our public safety workers.
Well, you mentioned a couple things, and one on the water. I'm probably out there more than anybody for fire alarms and all. I've never had a water issue. I know it does stand on there, but as far as flooding and us not being able to get there, on the other side of that, we have had flooding on Sisk Road that has made it impassable to get back. I mean, I personally, we got called for water rescues, and by the time, you know, I mean, it was moving so fast that the time we even gathered up to figure out a game plan on what we're going to do, you know, the rain stopped, it subsided, you can drive on through. So as far as that is concerned, like I said, I've not personally had any issues, you know, on that end as far as like flooding and making that impassable through there. Second point, that's a terrible road for semis. And if they are trying to come out,
Sisk Road is.
yes.
Yes.
If they are trying to come out onto Rapids,
It's gonna be bad.
they're not going to make the turn and go back towards town. It is impossible. I've seen trucks there that because GPS sends them, there's even a sign that says do not turn on this road. They try to get in there, you cannot make that turn. They hang up, then the road is blocked. Then you truly have limited your emergency access all the way out Rapids at that point, you know, without having to go back around and hit 100 and all that. So wanted to interject that turn going back towards town, they would have to go back out towards Rapids.
And I know they're gonna
Come
say
around.
that's-
Sis Road is a terrible, terrible road to try to put semi-traffic on, and I think Marty's right. If they do try to, say, hey, we'll send them, and people are gonna start using it, they'll just drive around the
And I-
gate that you're
and I
gonna put up. And whoever farms all that, you're gonna have an issue there.
And I understand, Marty, it's been a while, but we'll see if we can pull those minutes back, because this is what concerns me, is if that is a record of the minutes, what my concern is that even if we say today, no, we're not gonna send the public works guy out there to grade that out, is whether the industrial authority would pursue it anyway. But if it's a matter of, or a record of minutes in an open meeting, I would think the planning and zoning commission would have to revisit this to do something, to
Right.
grant this extension to Sis Grove.
I'm afraid
Would that be right, Sam?
Right.
I'm kind of afraid this might lead to something else down the road, that we could be shedding traffic out on CS Road. We don't need to be doing that. We don't need to provide them.
Judge, for what it's worth, my brother was a lawyer, district attorney for the highway department for 25 years, and what they always said is traffic is like water, it will find a way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just saying, you're right, you put gates up, but I mean, it just,
Oh, you gotta do-
once word gets out,
Right.
I would like to go back and revisit this issue because, like I say, when I was on the planning and zoning, that was the biggest concern of that community out there, was that traffic was not going through there. And they were told at that meeting, I don't know if it got put in the record or not, but I remember, I think Carter was the chairman, I was on there, Glenn Baum was on it, there were several there. But they were told at that meeting that there would not be traffic going out of the backside of this park.
But Sam, but that would be correct, Sam. If it is absolutely part of the record of the planning and zoning meeting, the planning and zoning commission would first have to even address this, to even consider extending this road.
if that was part of, I mean, if that was decided on what was happening with that road and so forth, then yes, you would probably.
So the question here with you guys is, do we want to table this, or do we want to have a motion to not participate in extending this road?
I'd like to table it until we found out.
More information about what actually happened with planning and
I
zoning?
don't mind our public works helping the industrial park and all out.
Right.
As far as helping grade roads and all. If, Bobby's, he knows what they, how much time they have or whatever. I'm not saying don't do it. I want to make sure, if they can just go back part of the way and not have that road going all the way out, because I remember that at that meeting, and I'd like to have that checked into before we go any further.
Is everyone okay with tabling it and gathering more information? Okay. All right, next, gentlemen, is to review and approve salt auction bids. Bobby, do you want to address any of this? Or it's right in front of us. Is your recommendation that we go with the Compass Minerals America bid?
How much are we talking about purchasing? It says 120. Are we going to do 120 tons or?
This was the Keiko bid, and they reverted back to the old years. You're not obligated to anything.
Okay.
You are, if you do participate and purchase though, you do secure a percentage over what you bid, or the amount. Last year you had to buy a percentage of 50 or 70% of it in order to get it. This year they're going back, you're not obligated to purchase any of it.
But if you do purchase.
This is our price, whatever
This
we
is our
purchase,
price.
this is our price.
This is our price for 120 plus, I think it was another 50% of that.
So we get 180 tons.
Is anyone, what I would need then is just a motion to accept the Compass Minerals America Incorporated.
But we'll need something written.
And sign. So we'll need a motion and a second to accept Compass Minerals America Incorporated bid and authorize the judge to sign some type of agreement or letter stating that we accepted their bid.
Marty.
Marty, you made the motion. So we got a motion by Marty, a second by Scott. Any other question or discussion? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next, gentleman, is an interesting discussion, and I'm sure I'm going to need the jailer for this one, is to discuss or approve deputizing county employees for inmate labor program. And I'll make sure, jailer, that I'm understanding prior to, and I'm going to say prior to COVID, because since COVID we've not had people out, but prior to COVID, you've been able to take individuals and go through like a little course or something and get them to where they can actually have someone in the inmate labor program out with them working or whatever. Since COVID, I guess the Department of Corrections has made a change and said, okay, if these inmates are going to go outside the facility to do any type of work, they're going to have to be with a deputized, a detention center deputy.
Yes.
So that puts us in kind of a spot because, as I've indicated to you, we're not likely to hire 2 or 3 or whatever people with the jail just to be deputies that would take people out to mow or pick up, trash around the square or whatever they're doing. So it leads to the question of, do we or can we or do we deputize public works employees, other department employees, county employees, to have inmate labor with them? And I called the counselor and said, hey, let's see if we can figure out if this puts us at some kind of different or exposed liability with this change from DOC. I don't know the answer to all that.
You did that so correctly. I don't even have to say a word. There you go.
There you go.
Everything you said is pretty much, what he said. Preface this by saying, some of you know this, some of you do not. My mom was the executive director of the Arts Council for about 20 years. And so most of those years, she had inmate help. Whenever the Arts Council would do something, she'd get a carload of them. And then after a while, she had one that was pretty much there all the time, and just like the Chamber of Commerce and Renaissance and some others. And then my wife at the library uses them, and she and I think Jim Peterson at the library, because there was some talk about you need to have a male help supervise them. And so I am a big proponent of this. That said, I'm probably going to be throwing some cold water on this. The statutes, and the sheriff can nod on this, there is a provision in statutes where you can have special deputy sheriffs that are basically not paid. You kind of use them for emergencies or when you need staff. Like oftentimes I've seen them, like the constables used at a parade to block off traffic. If something emergency comes up, you can bring them in. But they're sworn, but they're not paid. They're not on the system or anything. There is no such provision for deputy jailers in the statutes. I've told you I thought there would be potential exposure to this sort of thing. Also some other issues that I've had. So I called, the guru, Rich Ornstein at Cable, who I'm sure you all know. And he started backing up like old gray from a sinkhole and just basically saying that you're going to have to work that. You can't just deputize someone. You're going to have to hire them.
I was afraid of that.
And it can be part-time and it can be minimum wage, but you'd have to hire them as deputy jailers. And the workers' comp would apply to them. If they get injured, it's a workers' comp claim.
That was the question right there. You and I talked.
It's a workers' comp claim. If there's some kind of an injury or accident or something, he said, we'd represent you, but it's exposure and it's your insurance premiums. And so
So the answer to the first question is, honestly, in the statutes, there is no provision to deputize a public works employee.
No.
Okay.
And then the second question is, should you, only way you can do that is to hire them, like, someone from the Renaissance, make them a quote-unquote deputy jailer and pay a minimum. And I don't recommend that at all. And so, as a matter of fact, I'd be jumping up and down against that because just it's going to cause a headache for you.
Right.
It's going to cause a headache for everybody.
And then for obvious budgetary reasons, I mean, I don't think we're gonna hire 2 or 3 or 4.
No, I understand. I mean, you know, when you and I talked about this, I mean, due to my staff, I don't have anybody that I can send out. I'm at that point. Y'all know where I'm at on that. They changed all of this, like you said, once COVID hit. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but a lot of things don't make sense to me. So now they have to be, if they go out, and I'm getting calls all the time from everybody, hey, I need inmates, I need this, I need that. And norm is, okay, we can take care of it. Now I can't, because before, like you said, I could bring a class of people from the community, heads of, all these entities, and bring them in and give them it's like a 8-hour training that they have to sit through, approved by DOC, and then you can take them out. You can do whatever. Since COVID, they've stopped it. And now they put a restriction on that you have to be with a deputy. I know the parks, they're begging. There's a lot of others there are, but that leads me to the equipment use. The equipment use that is out of the parks, 90% of it belongs to the jail in the commissary. It just does. There's restrictions with that commissary, that equipment.
So here's the question, and this is one that, in light of what we're hearing, I think this is one we're going to have to deal with like right now. And that is, if that is a change that the Department of Correction has made.
Right.
And we have these pieces of equipment that have been purchased with commissary funds.
Right.
And now, because of budget constraints and changes in the Department of Corrections view on how inmates are let out to work.
Right.
I guess my question is, are you saying that we will not be allowed or we cannot use that equipment anymore?
That's the rules, yes. It has to be, that equipment was purchased with commissary money. He's been here, you know about it. I think everybody's familiar with now how the commissary works. It was purchased with commissary money. Therefore, that equipment has to be operated to create a job for a resident, an inmate. And they have to be on that equipment. That's to operate it. We can't just, I guess what I'm saying is, we can't just go back to the county and say, here, y'all got this equipment, use it. I can't do that. That's why I'm trying to think outside the box. Mason, you and I talked about this. Could we deputize, maybe like Gerald Bashir? He works for the park. He was one of my former captains. Do I trust him with a badge? Yes, sir, I do.
But you got to pay.
Right, but you have to pay him through the detention center, not through the park.
But he worked for the park.
Huh?
He works part-time at the park, so.
Yeah, but what Sam's
So we
saying,
can't-
if we deputize him, we have to pay him through the detention center.
I think it's the liability that is our biggest concern, isn't it? If they were to get hurt.
Well, I mean, theoretically, if someone got hurt,
Still going back on the county.
I'm just saying, back in the good old days before the pandemic, if someone got hurt, there was exposure there too.
Well, my concern with deputizing, and I understand you talked to Rich. I've talked to Rich a little bit myself. My concern is, I don't want, and I think the sheriff will back me up on this, even with your special deputies, you don't want a rogue deputy. You don't want somebody out there that you don't trust, like Mr. Bashir. He's given this county 20-something years. He's proven. Keith Dinkins, that works for Bobby, I mean, he's a proven deputy. I trust them with our badges. I trust them with county liability. There's some people that I'm not going to go out there and deputize because they may end up at, a restaurant and get upset and have a few cold beverages, and then what, you know, all of a sudden they become super cop, and then you got a problem on the county. Do you see where I'm going with this?
No, I hear you.
That's my concern.
There's one or two other things I would like to look at, and then this is on the outside of the box, but I have not done enough cogitating to reasonably form an idea that I want to, I've got to do a little more thinking before I shoot my mouth off.
I'm just
It's
trying
odd,
to
I
help the
usually, it
county
doesn't usually stop me.
let's get what we need, you know, to take care of.
But
Well, it sounds, I mean, it sounds like to me, I mean, at this point, it sounds like to me that having inmate labor is probably not gonna happen.
please,
Well, I've got this, they, you know, reinstated the state money, so I've got them out picking up.
Well, right, well, I know the state program and you, and of course, the state's
Right.
covering all the cost of those, detention center employees being out,
Well,
working.
on the outside looking in, you know, a while back, we talked about, mowing contracts. I think there was a bid, or you were checking out some bids?
We solicited bids.
Right. You know, if you've got a sworn deputy to this county that can take them out, you're gonna be money ahead, because you're paying one person versus, you know, a company, but they can do more than just mow. You know, they can benefit the county.
Yeah, but when we looked at those bids, it was determined that we would be better off just to continue to do it in-house through the public works and to pay that bid price.
And actually, there's another problem. That equipment belongs to the jail. Those
I went out to the park a while back ago and done an inventory, and I've done talked to the judge about this. My opinion about the park, a lot of those, you guys have got one mower at the park, one mower. According to the park, you got one mower out there.
Okay.
And you got a sand rake out there,
Sand rake,
and you got a gator out there. But all the other mowers out there belongs to the park.
I would have to pull our records, because
I think
there's a lot of transfer that goes from this one to that one to this one to that.
you did have two mowers, but you surplus one. And then,
That's why, yes,
Yeah.
you're right on that.
so, and then, sometime last year, somebody broke in out there at the maintenance garage and stole a bunch of chainsaws, which were you guys, but the park has bought those back themselves. According to the,
The paperwork, we keep track of it, yeah, you're
so
right.
what, and I was talking to Mason, we're not gonna let a mower, just one mower get in a way, you know, as far as I'm concerned, we'll go buy the park mower
Right.
today.
Well, it just so happens I have estimates for mowers.
Oh, okay. So,
It's matching.
Eric, I mean, I agree with you, it makes 0 sense of what the DOC is doing concerning inmates.
Right.
I mean, I can't even, I'm sitting there trying to rationalize what COVID had to do with any of this.
You may lose your mind trying to rationalize that one, Myron.
Yeah,
But
I'm doing the same thing.
So,
I got an idea or two, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut. It's not politically
Well,
correct.
Oh, we can get on that topic.
Just
Just
an
my,
idea.
one question I had, I know some people, before, if they were LLCs, they could come and pick up inmates to help them work, and they could pay them, but they can't do that anymore.
That's coming. It's been on halt. It's been halted. And matter of fact, we just met on that yesterday.
what was that, Marty? I missed the last part of what you said.
Before
The
all
SCORE
this,
program.
Oh, okay, where the people were actually like going
if you were an LLC, you
Yes.
could come and pick, so why can somebody that's an LLC go pick up an inmate? But then you're saying if it's for public stuff, it has to be a deputized jailer. I know you're not saying that, but
I'm
why?
not saying,
That makes,
Marty,
that
we ain't
makes-
agreed in a long time. I agree with you there. There's a problem.
that makes no sense.
It doesn't
to
make
me.
sense, but
So could we not get, we have an LLC company pick them up and use them for the
You're still gonna
stuff
have to,
around
you're
town?
still gonna have, well,
I mean, you're gonna be.
I'm not fighting this. I'm not fighting this by any means.
I'm
I'm trying to
brainstorming
help
right
because
here. I'm, you
our
know,
community is struggling right now. because we have relied on inmates for a lot of things for a long time.
Well,
And
here-
now it's growing season and,
You know, the trash pickup is a major thing, you know. That's, the calls I get, that's what it's about. I mean, as far as the inmates out at the park, the inmates out at the park does everything that nobody else wants to do. Weed trim, pick up trash, that's what they do. And they occasionally get on a mower and they will mow around, trim around stuff.
when the mowers are rolling, they're
Yeah.
juicing.
But my thought on, from what Myers telling me, we got one mower, one sand rake at the park. I'm just
We
saying,
let some of them go at that last
all right,
auction.
what do we have at
we
the
got two,
Public Works,
we got
Bobby?
two public works.
We got two at Public Works. Okay,
That's the Kubotas that are out here mowing
if we're at the point where we don't know if we can use those mowers because of the rules, and I understand the rules, then I would be in favor of surplusing those, putting that money back in the commissary, that's where it come from. And then the county replace those mowers, and that way we don't have this issue of wondering where we.
And here, we
use them or
can
not.
check other bids. Bobby just glanced at this morning. We can get a 72-inch, commercial grade Exmark for $10,055, okay? Now, you're talking about if you use this at the park, you're gonna have to have a hitch kit so you can hook these other pieces of equipment, but you can get a turf striping kit and a drag harrow to use on the ball fields, and the park could have that mower with all that stuff. And the price on that would be $10,950, okay? And obviously, I've talked to the city manager, obviously, they would have to have a commission meeting, but they're probably gonna cover half of that cost if we do. So you're talking about $5,500. Bobby said to replace the two we had, that this one mower would be good, but actually then getting one with a little smaller deck would be even better. So I think we could buy the two for us and cover half the cost of the one for the park in the neighborhood of $25,000 for all three pieces. Well, all three mowers, plus the equipment that the park would need to drag the field and so on.
I mean, obviously, we'd rather have it the way it was before.
Yeah.
But we
Legally,
can't have some equipment sitting out there that the park employees can't
we
use.
can't, legally, we can't, the only way we can buy these surplus equipment is buy them at auction, correct? I mean,
And
you couldn't sell this equipment
The
back to the county.
Kubotas are new, so that would be one of those that you actually just put on, you probably put that online. If they had a lot of hours, I would say sell them the way we've done it. But, you know, that field rate, I think it was $18,000.
$5 piece.
And it doesn't have a lot of hours on it, so I would say that would be one of those that you put online, because these other municipalities would probably pay more.
Sam, could we not figure a value of those without going to auction if it's the county purchasing it and pay the jail for the equipment? Being it's already here, we don't have to bid it, we don't have to buy new stuff unless the stuff is wore out.
I mean,
Could we not figure a fair value to do that?
Out there, that one out there at
Yeah,
the
that's
park,
what
I'd
I
have
was
to
saying,
check the
legally,
hours on it and
could we
gators.
buy it legally? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if that sand rate, I don't see it, I know it may have been $18,000 new, but
Right.
but it's not gonna bring nowhere near that if you sell it at auction.
No.
So
Okay,
rather than,
But you could
So that's a
probably
good
put it in
question.
paper, couldn't you, that it's,
Well,
Can we determine the cost of all of that equipment? And Sam find out if that's something we can legally do and have all that information by our next meeting? And we know worst case scenario is, we know roughly what brand new equipment would cost us.
right, so, I mean, if we could, now, obviously, if some of that equipment is wore out, I don't know how
I don't think we've got any of it that's wore out. We get rid of it.
Do what?
the sand rake is a specialized piece of equipment. It's either gonna bring what it's worth, or it'll go dirt cheap.
Right.
There won't be no middle road.
That's what I'm saying, but with all these
Okay.
parks and stuff,
Now, the other mower they've got, the Hustler mower, it's used for the roughest, mowing around tree roots and everything out there. It probably, and they don't use that mower a lot. I mean, I'm not saying they're not on it, but that's definitely not their primary mower.
If I didn't misunderstand the public works director, he just said, he just as well by now is to keep,
Yeah,
because
for him.
they're wore out, whatever.
And I can I'll get with Bobby and we can quote, you said you'd prefer to have this, maybe this size and one smaller, so we can get a quote on the smaller one and know exactly what. Can we just get all this information together for our May 4th meeting, and in the meantime,
But I would like.
we got no choice but to use that equipment until we determine what we're doing.
I'd like for somebody to check on that LLC deal, because like I say, I mean, you didn't have anything to do with it, but it makes absolutely no sense that they're telling us, or telling the library and the parks and the, you know, that's the Renaissance and the other ones that use them, you have to have a deputy jailer that's paid for by the jail to get it. But you can get a guy out here working construction, and you know who I'm talking about, but there's a inmate down there that's really good operating equipment. He hasn't been able to get out since, but he's an LLC, and he can go pick that guy up and pay him by the hour to work for him.
You cringed when I said till May the 4th we'll be able to use that equipment. You give me one of those.
We're just,
What's May 4th?
Huh?
All my days running together.
May 4th is our next meeting.
Okay. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I got certain guidelines I got to follow, and, yeah.
we just don't want to do anything that.
But if y'all want, we'll work something.
Yeah, so what we need is put a dollar value on the equipment. Sam will determine whether we can legally buy it. And we'll get some pricing on alternate equipment, and we'll have all that together at our next meeting and figure out what we really got to do.
Good enough. All right, sounds good.
Is any other?
I mean, our topic was deputizing somebody. I don't think that's gonna work.
I don't either.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Okay.
So, is everyone good with where we're set up to head for our next meeting?
Yeah.
Information together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Jalen. All right, gentlemen, next is, if you had an opportunity to review the budget transfers, we need a motion and a second to authorize those.
Motion moved.
Motion by Nate. Second by Myron. Any question or discussion on those transfers? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, gentlemen, if you had an opportunity to review the cash transfer of $19,377.45 from the federal grant fund to the general fund, we need a motion and a second to approve that transfer. Got a motion by Scott?
Second.
Second by Myron. Any question or discussion about that transfer? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, gentlemen, if you had an opportunity to review the bills and claims, we would need a motion and a second to approve those bills and claims.
So moved.
Motion by Myron.
Second.
Second by Nate. Any other question or discussion?
Is the jailer still out there? Is the jailer still out there, or is he gone? I had a question. I mean, we had cost per limitation increase for January, February, and March. So we got 3 months of, I was just going to ask him about that because it's several dollars in that.
Well, and I was doing some research this morning. So last year, January 2020 through March 2020, we paid cost of limitation of almost $50,000. And this January through March is right at like 19.6.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't know what all that entails, because I haven't officially.
Well, the reason it caught my eye is because we had January, February, and March on there, and it,
Michelle had an issue, which she has informed Southern Health Partners to make sure that she's included on the email when they email those invoices out, because apparently they were getting that to the jail, to someone, whoever gets those emails, but they weren't making, a copy wasn't making it back up
okay.
to our office. So Michelle has fixed that to let her know, please include me on the email so that.
Okay.
So.
But it just jumped out at me when it was 3 months.
But the cost over the same 3-month period has gone down from last year.
Oh, okay.
Do we still need him?
Not really.
We don't need him.
We,
All right, we'll tell him when he gets back we don't need him. We'll tell him we just wanted him to get some exercise. Any other question or discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You can tell him what you want,
I
but we
just
got
had
to
a
figure it
question
out.
on the cost pool for the cost pool limitation, because it had January, February, March on here. But then Nicole informed us that last year in the same amount of time, it was a lot more. But it just had January, February, March on this one claim, and I had a question on that. But she said there was an issue that emails were not getting up here or something, but they had it all straightened up. So that's the only question I had. Yes.
All right, gentlemen, as y'all are all aware, get into reports. As y'all are all aware, we refinanced bonds on the industrial authority and purchased an additional 192 acres, I believe was 190 or 192 acres. We've done all that. We've gone all the way through the hearing process. I have a paper here that is from the Office of the Governor, Department for Local Government, and it is the decision of state and local debt officer that I just have to be recorded in the minutes that I have acknowledged that we have gotten this. There's no vote required, but it does say, the last line of this says, record of this decision should be made in the minutes of the next meeting of the Simpson County Fiscal Court in accordance with KRS 65.940, and it's just that they have made a favorable decision on that bond, and we're good, and I just had to note that and be recorded in the minutes.
Sometimes it's a good thing to get approved, sometimes it's a good thing to not get approved.
Yeah, so, and that brings me to this, you can pass those down so you guys can have these copies of this. It brings us to our bond rating, that we got that back. There's just a couple things that I wanted to point out. If you get the page, the front one that says Ratings Direct, do you guys have this one on top? It says Ratings Direct. If you flip through to the second page where it says Credit Overview, the occupation revenues are Simpson County's largest funding source for operation, but the county does not face immediate challenges in balancing its budget, as revenue has not declined materially during the pandemic. These are just some notes, and I want to read a few highlights of these. The next paragraph behind that, when you guys may want to read that when you get time. Going over to page 4, adequate management. They noted in the bond hearing that we view the county's management as adequate with standard financial policies and practices under our FMA methodology. Nicole and I sat in on the bond hearing. It felt kind of like you were being given a test in school as you went through this bond hearing. The paragraph down below that says, although we view the FMA as standard, we believe there are some distinguishing factors of the current Simpson County management, including consecutive surpluses in the general fund and total government funds, and the forward-looking view of the county officials regarding mounting pension pressure as they projected out the next 10 years of pension cost and passed a tax increase to accommodate rising costs. Over on page 5, under weak debt and contingent liability profile, that bottom sentence, they say overall net debt is low at 0.4% of market value, which is, in our view, a positive credit factor. But then on the next page, on page 6, they say, in our opinion, and this is the S&P Global Ratings, in our opinion, a credit weakness of Simpson County's large pension and OPEB obligation, which Nicole says we don't have the OPEB, because that would be like continuing things such as life insurance and other benefits to retired employees. We don't extend those, so we're only obligated to the current employee's pension. But the weakness in Simpson County's large pension obligation without a plan in place that we think will sufficiently address the obligation. In other words, speaking to them, what they said is even what we've done, looking forward, they think that we should still have trouble. And I don't know if any of you guys remember, but in 2019, when we were having in-person conference meetings, you know, they talked about in there that at some point, your retirement obligation would start to reflect on your books as an unfunded liability, unless you clearly had the funding set aside to cover it. So I don't know at what point that's going to be. But the good news is, on their ratings letter, which is the next group of papers stapled together, S&P Global Ratings has assigned a rating of A+. So the gist of it is that all in all, although things could be better, we're probably better than most Kentucky counties and still at an A+. Another thing I want to bring out to you, if you guys had a look on there, just for an information and note purposes only, a letter from the Simpson County Water District, which takes no action to the court other than they're obligated to notify us of this, is that the Simpson County Water District has become a founding member of the Rural Water Financing Agency. It obligates us in no way to anything. It's no cost to the fiscal court whatsoever. They just have to send us a letter saying that they've notified us in their participation in that. One other thing real quick, just a reminder to everyone that our trash amnesty days will be this Friday and Saturday, April 23rd, 24th, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Kenneth Utley Drive at the Convenience Center. You will need some form of identification that shows you are a Simpson County resident to be able to dump your household goods or trash into those containers.
But what if you're going to vote?
Well,
You don't need ID.
thankfully in Kentucky, we still have to scan our driver's license to vote or some form of ID. And then, gentlemen, just a quick reminder, don't forget, we have a budget meeting this Friday at 9 a.m., and the plans will be to be out of here by 11 o'clock, if not sooner. Marty, do you have anything?
Couple things. This morning about between 6:30 and 7, a horse and buggy was hit on Gold City Road. A car popped over a hill and hit it. Just want to encourage everyone to watch for that on my end of the county, but farm equipment all over the county right now. We try to be as safe as possible moving the equipment, but we don't. Sometimes things happen, and a lot of times it can be bad quick. So just if you're driving and you see a vehicle with a caution light or a red flag or any of that, just try to move or know that there's something large coming behind them. The other thing, I got the email, and I'm sure you did too, from Jim about the Recovery Act stuff. Are we set to go on that with the Dunn's number and SAM number? And,
Yeah, we've got all that.
okay, because it said some counties hadn't got it and it was on.
Yeah,
You had to,
all we're waiting on is the check and guidance.
yeah, which I talked to Jim texted me the other day, and he was like, you're going to get this money, and I said, well, we hadn't got it, we don't, so you're going to get that, and he said there's on that page there's what you can spend on, but it's not real clear on the amount of, what we're doing, but we will get the money, but it's going to, I think it's going to be a lot of confusion and hassle in the beginning trying to figure out exactly what we can do so that we don't do something wrong.
And it's like I said, we've got till December of 2024, so I don't think we need to be just jumping up and down to jump on something as soon as it arrives.
I won't be, but there's going to be several people.
Yeah, because we really need to figure out exactly what we can do.
Right.
And how it can be done. But I think Nicole is absolutely right. Everything that we need in place to be able to receive the money, we have it. It's just we need the money and the guidance. Anything else, Mark?
No.
Nate?
No report this time.
Scott?
No, sir.
Myron?
report.
Counselor?
Follow up on what the sheriff said. It appears, my compliments, a record-breaking tax collection rate this year. Kudos to the sheriff's staff for that. However, as of the 15th, they are no longer late, they're delinquent, and you can no longer pay your back delinquent taxes at the sheriff's office. They have been transferred to the county clerk's office. So if you,
They didn't get the reprieve to May 17th like income tax?
no.
Okay.
And so what that means is those who want to pay them, don't go to the sheriff's office. While they'll be nice and polite to you, they'll just tell you to go to the clerk's office. So to save yourself time and aggravation, please go pay at the clerk's office. Please pay, because there will be a sale here in a couple, 3 months. And the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you.
Very good. Sheriff, you have anything?
Yes. Two brief items, one mainly for public concern. As y'all know, housing materials have skyrocketed in new construction, wood especially. So we're beefing up the crows on areas where we know construction's going on, just to try to help offset that. A piece of plywood's running you $100 right now, which is just unheard of. Also, we have set a date, June 14th. We haven't set a time. It's probably going to be about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We're going to have our auction at the sheriff's office. If there is any county property that you want to put in it outside of what we have, I need to know about it fairly quick, exactly what it is, serial numbers and all that stuff, and we can go ahead and sell it. The things that belong to the county that get sold at the auction, that check comes back to y'all. That's not, we don't get that check to begin with. Items that were awarded to the sheriff's office through the court system, that goes into our drug fund. That's where our drug fund comes from. It's nothing huge there, but we've got 2 Crown Vics y'all have already approved to sell. That comes back to the county. The truck that's going to go to Bob won't actually be auctioned there that day, but that was a truck that was going to be in there.
What about putting Bob's truck in?
We can put Bob's truck in. I mean, just get the information on it, and we just put it in the auction.
We may have some mowers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and if you do, that's fine. I need in the next couple of weeks to know what it is, because
if you know,
we've got to advertise it.
When you say in the next couple of weeks, if we knew, because, I mean, Marty's got a point, we're going to meet May the 4th. At that time, we may decide just to turn those mowers back over, buy a new mower. If you know by May 4th, that afternoon, is that soon enough? That's,
As long as I know you approve it to be sold, I'll probably come in with the list to you guys. Honestly, we've got a bunch of junk sitting around. Not talking about vehicles, just
don't use the word
stuff
junk.
that you could almost throw in the dumpster.
Don't use the word junk,
Well, it
Sheriff.
might be worth something to somebody. Kind of like Bobby's, there may be some boxes of stuff out there. I couldn't even tell you what all's in there.
Well, I was talking about those mowers, if, that would be something from the jail anyway, because that money would go back in the commissary. So, is that something we would have to,
I don't know that we have to approve the sale of those.
check on that, Counselor. I don't know if we approve the surplus stuff that was bought out of the commissary, or if the jail just does it.
I don't know that we would have to approve it. I mean, I think it could sell in this auction, and you just have a list of commissary items that would
Yeah,
go back.
just a list of what proceeds go to which entity. No, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and there's some good items the public might have interest in. The black Humvee that's back there, we're selling it. That money will come to the county. There's a generator. I've got to talk to Bob. Bob, did you decide if you wanted that generator emergency services or not? Okay.
Does the Humvee run?
It does.
Oh.
It's not the armored. The armored Humvee we can't sell.
Okay.
If it was ever used, there's certain categories for military equipment. The black Humvee that sits by it was awarded to us and is now county property. We're going to sell it because we're not really getting any use out of it. There are some trailers back there, and there's some various vehicles, but we'll be getting a list together. If y'all have anything on the county end you want sold, that's fine as well. So.
Okay. All right, thank you, Sheriff. Chief, anything from the fire department? All right, so Bill, anything with maintenance? Bobby, anything public works? Am I leaving anyone out? Nope. Tom's smiling back there. Do you have something you need to share, Tom? Okay. Okay, all right, just want to make sure. Motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
I got Marty and Nate, I don't know in which order. All in favor, aye? Aye.